The most dangerous person in the room is never the loudest. When confronted with a chaotic, draining argument, they simply look at the aggressor, give a slight, unbothered nod. No shouting, no slamming tables, no long, desperate explanations. Just a quiet, decisive exit. Most people mistake this for weakness. They think it's surrender, but they have it completely backward. Walking away from toxic drama is never an act of defeat. It's the ultimate show of control. When you master your mind, you stop playing petty games. You deny chaos and audition. You realize the power of the cutoff. Real maturity isn't loud. It never screams to prove itself. It's silent. And when you look closely at how highly regulated people operate, there are 7 distinct signs of a truly unbreakable mind. We start with the most draining trap in relationships today: the exhaustion of the loud boundary. Think about the last time someone deeply violated your trust or your time. You likely spent 20 minutes pacing around your room, drafting a massive, multi-paragraph text message. You laid out the exact timeline of how they hurt you. You explained your perspective in painful detail, hoping that if you could find the perfect combination of words, they would finally have an epiphany, see your value, and change. This is what happens when we mistake a boundary for a debate. When you waste your energy trying to argue for your boundaries, you are not establishing a boundary. You are negotiating your own self-worth. You are treating your right to respect like a contract that requires their signature. You are effectively begging a toxic person for permission to be respected. When you achieve true emotional maturity, your boundaries look completely different. They become completely silent. You stop using your words to negotiate self-respect. If someone repeatedly disrespects your boundaries, you don't call a meeting. You don't write an essay. You simply execute a real-world consequence. You adjust the permissions level of your life. You restrict their access to your headspace and your time. No grand announcements, no cryptic social media quotes. You simply, gracefully step backward. Chaotic people are confused by this because they are hardwired to expect a fight. They want a messy argument to push against. But when they hit a solid wall of absolute, polite silence, they are left with nothing to leverage. Mature boundaries are never explained. They are simply executed. Once you stop negotiating your boundaries, you must audit the daily currency of your peace. This means tracking your daily mental budget. Your brain is a biological machine with strict daily limits. You only have a finite amount of energy for deep focus and emotional stability. Every single day, you wake up with a set balance in this account. Now, look at how the average person spends that balance. Every time you fire back at a toxic online comment, every time you try to correct a manipulative coworker, or argue with a family member who chooses to misunderstand you, you are writing a massive check. You are drawing directly from your own limited sanity, handing that wealth over to someone who brings zero value to your table. Chronic emotional burnout rarely comes from your daily responsibilities. It comes from treating your attention like an infinite resource. An untrained mind takes every single piece of emotional bait. A mature mind instantly audits the provocation. They look at the person trying to light the match. They calculate the potential return on that investment. They realize the payout is exactly zero. So they close the account before the first word is even spoken. They don't engage, not because they are passive, but because they guard their peace. They save that priceless mental currency to build their own lives, to protect their focus, and fuel their own creative visions. While reactive people stay trapped in the chaos, completely draining their accounts. A powerful mind has already quietly walked away. Mastering this composure sounds great on paper, but your primitive brain absolutely hates it. In the heat of the moment, your internal wiring makes disengaging feel impossible. This brings us to the third sign: refusing to mirror their chaos. Human beings are natural pack animals. To help us survive, our brains developed a built in copying system. It automatically mirrors the emotions of the person right in front of you. Anger automatically copies anger. Hostility naturally triggers hostility. When someone attacks your character, your survival instincts command you to fight back. Toxic people understand this reflex intuitively. They use it as an emotional weapon. They throw a chaotic curveball specifically to disrupt your peace. They are desperately waiting for you to hit the ball back just to keep the messy game alive. They completely require your anger. They need your defensive reaction to justify their own internal mess. Because if they can make you yell, they can point their finger and say you're the problem. But a highly regulated mind breaks this mirror completely. When they face hostility, they stay entirely detached from the storm. Instead of matching that loud energy, they actually lower their voice. They slow down their speech, or they say absolutely nothing at all. You can't play a game of tennis if the other person refuses to swing the racket. By withholding your reaction, you starve the conflict of oxygen. The entire argument collapses, leaving them standing completely alone, forced to sit in their own emotional wreckage. Once you stop mirroring the chaos, you must kill the urge to slide back into the mud. This is the fourth sign: letting go of the need to save them. There's a frustrating loop that traps empathetic people for years. It's the loop of if only. If only I could find the perfect words, they would finally see the light. If only they understood how much they hurt me, they would change. This is the ultimate mental trap. You are operating under a false belief that you can control how someone else acts. You are wasting your energy trying to build a beautiful story on a page they are determined to burn down. A powerful mind steps out of that trap by accepting a harsh, liberating truth. The way they misinterpret your life is simply not a problem for you to solve. Their behavior is just a reflection of their own internal mess. It is completely outside your jurisdiction. When you choose to step out of the loop, you aren't quitting a healthy fight. You are choosing your own climate over someone else's storm. You must let go of the constant urge to fix them. You cannot reason someone out of a position they didn't reason themselves into. The moment you accept this, the heavy weight lifts, and you take absolute ownership of the only domain you actually govern: your own inner world. Even when we know an argument is irrational, a hidden part of us begs us to stay. Why? Because our ego is hunting for a specific prize: validation. We want the person who wronged us to look us in the eye and say, "You were right, and I am deeply sorry." We are waiting for an admission of guilt from the exact person who broke our trust. This brings us to our fifth sign: mastering your emotional cooldown window. This is the exact period of time where stress hormones completely hijack your logic. Your brain is flooded with chemical alarms, making clear, rational thought impossible. An unmastered mind stays trapped in this state for hours, days, or even weeks. They spend their drives to work having imaginary arguments. They wake up at 3 a.m. replaying the conflict, drafting the absolute perfect comeback. They let their clarity, happiness, and sleep be held hostage by someone who is fundamentally dishonest. But a regulated mind doesn't look to an arsonist to help them rebuild the house they just burned down. They shut down the emotional trap through quick, decisive closure. You do not need a toxic person's permission to grant yourself peace. A mature mind looks exclusively at the raw data of how a person consistently behaves. They draw their own clear conclusions. They close the case file in their own mind, seal the evidence, and move forward. Your emotional clarity must never be held hostage by another person's inability to tell the truth. As you practice this quiet detachment, people will try to weaponize psychology against you. They will label your silence as stonewalling. They will call you cold or accuse you of ghosting. That's why our sixth sign is knowing the difference between running away and walking away. Running away is born out of fear and anxiety. It's avoiding a difficult truth because you lack the courage to face discomfort. It's just a trick to protect a fragile ego from accountability. Walking away is the exact opposite. It comes from a calm, clear realization that the connection is completely broken. You aren't leaving because you're scared of their words. You're stepping out of the arena because respectful conversation is completely dead. You see that they aren't listening to understand you. They're only listening to find weapons in your responses. There is zero panic in this exit. No games and no passive-aggressive drama. You are simply finished. You realize that staying is a total waste of your limited life energy. So you gracefully, deliberately close the door, and you don't check if they are still knocking. This brings us to the final, most defining trait of an unbreakable mental life: knowing exactly what your mind is worth. To understand this, think about a beautifully restored classic car, a pristine 1967 Mustang. Think about the thousands of hours of meticulous craftsmanship poured into its engine, polishing the flawless paint job, perfecting the interior frame. It is a high-value masterpiece. Now ask yourself a simple question. Would you ever take that pristine machine and deliberately drive it into a muddy demolition derby? Would you let it get smashed and dented by rusted vehicles that have absolutely nothing to lose? Of course you wouldn't. That would be an act of total self-sabotage. Yet millions of people do this exact thing with their minds every single day. You spend years reading, learning, and building your emotional maturity. You turn yourself into a high-value person. But the moment a chaotic person provokes you, you drive your mind straight into their low-tier demolition derby. You allow your inner peace to get dented and ruined by people who thrive on wreckage. You have to realize your mind is simply too expensive for that. When you adopt this mindset, you aren't being arrogant or cold. You are operating as the fierce guardian of your own worth. You view your peace of mind as a luxury asset, one that cannot be traded away just for a temporary spike of ego satisfaction. You detach, not because you're numb, but because your time on this earth is far too valuable to spend on people who are fundamentally committed to misunderstanding you. Let's be entirely real as we close. Choosing silence is an incredibly uncomfortable shift. Your ego is deeply addicted to being proven right. When you choose to draw that line and execute a clean cutoff without a fight, chaotic people will instantly rewrite the story. They will tell your friends, your family, or your coworkers that you ran away because you couldn't handle the truth. They will distort the facts. They will paint themselves as the ultimate victim, and they will label you as the cold, heartless villain. Living with a false narrative, knowing it's a total lie, yet choosing to let them believe it without trying to correct them, is one of the hardest things a human being will ever do. Every untrained impulse inside you will beg you to jump back into the ring, to defend your reputation, and force them to acknowledge reality. But you must realize something crucial. Their opinion of you is none of your business. The exact moment you try to protect your reputation, you hand over the remote control to your emotional life. You let them decide when you get to feel peaceful and when you are forced to feel chaotic. True freedom means allowing someone to be completely, confidently wrong about who you are, while you remain entirely unbothered. You've left the crowded waiting room where most people live, constantly begging for validation. You have mastered the silence. But walking away is only the absolute beginning of what changes. There are deeper layers of mental power that most people never access, including a rare mental shift that turns your deepest internal anxieties into absolute readiness. You've learned to close the door on others. Now it's time to discover the immense strength you've built behind it. Click on the video on your screen right now to discover the 9 signs that you are secretly more powerful than anyone trying to break you. We see you, and we'll see you over there.